Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you all so much for being with me here today. I appreciate each and every one of you so very much. Today, got a follow-up video, and it's going to be a short one, believe it or not, on an album that I talked about a couple of weeks ago, and I'll put the link to that video in the description below. But I talked about three albums, one of which was Mobile Fidelity's release of Heart, Dreamboat Annie, an album that was released originally in 1975 in Canada and 1976 here in the United States. An album, a debut album of Heart that just had some of the best rock and roll songs, Magic Man, Crazy on You. And the entire album was one of those ones you could play all the way through because it's just that good. Anyway, my intentions were a couple weeks ago when I got the album, 3 weeks ago now, maybe it's been more like, it's been longer than that. My intention was to do a review and to compare it to my 1976 Mushroom label album, and then of course to the 1979 Nautilus Half-Speed Master Series. And the reason I didn't do it at that time because I felt that I had an issue with the Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs version of the album, in particular on side one. Before I jump into that really quick, if you like what you see, please go ahead and subscribe. That's great. But as always, please leave your comments in the comment section below, because really I'm going to want to hear from you in particular on this album as we go through and talk about this just for a quick minute on what your thoughts are. Have you bought this album? What are your thoughts? Do you have an issue with it? And I reached out to Mobile Fidelity, and we'll talk about that. But as always, like I say, please leave comments in the comment section below. And I do put in all of my videos chapters, so you can jump to the areas that you want to see. Most importantly, if you want to find out what my conclusions are, if I do a rating, you can find that within the chapters. So anyway, that's available to you as well. So let's go ahead and jump in and talk about the Mobile Fidelity release 2025, came out about a month ago, I think, of Heart, Dreamboat Annie. When I first sat down and listened to this album, it really didn't, I don't know, I didn't really notice a whole lot except for side one. When I put on side one, first queued it up, Magic Man, first track on the album. Keep in mind, these are 45 RPM albums, so we got two albums here. I listened to Magic Man, Dreamboat Annie, and then of course Crazy on You. Those are the three songs on side one of the Mobile Fidelity, 45 RPM. And I listened to it through and thought, okay, it sounds all right. Hadn't done any comparisons, hadn't done any critical listening, if you will, at that time, just listening to the album to get a feel for it. And as I started to listen to it again, actually, let me back up just a minute. As I turned the album over to side two, and then moving on to side 3 and 4 on the second album, something that really kind of, I noticed, either I was really getting into and listening to the music better, or more critically, I thought it just sounded so much better than did the first side of Magic Man and Crazy on You. I really thought, okay, wow, this is really interesting. Soul of the Sea, which is one of my favorite songs on the album, White Lightning and Wine, and How Deep It Goes. Great tracks on this album. The album's one of those albums you could play all the way through because it's all great. They kicked it, in my opinion, they just knocked it right out of the ballpark on their debut album, did Heart, and Nancy Wilson. And so I just thought, man, this is really getting good. And then I started listening to it again, and I started to really kind of sink in. Now, wait a minute. Magic Man seems a little bit different in sound characteristics than White Lightning. And I thought, well, that's really not true because it's a different song, right? Different side of the album. Only when I got to doing my comparison with my original 1976 pressing and of course the Nautilus half-speed mastered super disc did I start to really question what I was hearing. Really, what I was hearing, I really didn't really register completely and fully. I mean, I really did notice it just in listening to the album from side one to side four, but I really didn't really notice how different I thought that side one was until I started comparing it to these two. And it really sounded to me like side one was compressed, or the top and the bottom end had been limited in some way. It didn't seem as extended on the top or the bottom. And so I kind of thought, wait a minute, that's not right. I turned the record over and compared the songs on side two with songs on these two albums. And I was hearing a little bit more what I was expecting to hear from Mobile Fidelity. Obviously, a much cleaner, quieter vinyl, and really the highs and lows were extended. When I got over to side three and four on the second album, to me, the music was just simply outstanding. For example, on side three, White Lightning and Wine, it just sounds simply stunning. Excellent detail, top to bottom resolution. Drums are absolutely stunning and excellent on the Mobile Fidelity. I really felt that just sounded absolutely wonderful. Rolling over, well, let's say on side three, third song in, Sing Child Sing, Sing Child, I guess. Uh, it just sounded fantastic. Then rolling over to side four, How Deep It Goes is just a classic song and a fantastic song on the album. And it sounded simply wonderful. So I go back to side one on the Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab and listen to it. And it just seems restricted. It just seems clipped, cut off on the top end and on the bottom. And then when I did a direct comparison for Magic Man, Dreamboat Annie, and Crazy on You with these other two, it confirmed to me it doesn't sound right. At least it didn't to me. The top end and bottom end on my 1976 Mushroom pressing sounded much better. It just, to me, just sounded much better. Moving on down through the song list and listening to songs on side two, side three, and side four, then I could really hear the detail on the Mobile Fidelity. So rather than do a review based on that, I went ahead and sent an email to Music Direct and let them know that, hey, you know what? I think something's wrong with side one of disc one on Heart Dreamboat Annie. It just doesn't sound right. It seems like there's the top end and bottom end have been reduced or cut down or cut off. It just doesn't sound right in comparison to the other three sides. And I got an email right back from Music Direct saying that they will forward it on to the folks at Mobile Fidelity and they'd get right back to me. Well, 10 days went by and no one got back to me. So I sent my email right directly to Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs, got an immediate response from them. And here's kind of what happened. They first asked me if I would give them on the album, on the Mobile Fidelity on side one, what they were after was they wanted me to provide the matrix stamper number, which is in the dead wax on the album, which I did. And so I provided that. And they said, thank you, we'll get back with you. So in a couple of days, I did hear back from them. And here's what I got back from them. Our vinyl experts have listened to an A stock replacement LP as well as a promo stock. And we were not able to confirm the reported issues based on what you have described. We believe that the sonic characteristics you're hearing are inherent to the recording. This is simply the sound quality of this particular album. And then they went on to say, but if you feel that you have a bad album or something, we'd be happy to send you another one. And I thought, well, there's no snap, crackles, or pops. The vinyl looks great. I just thought, I don't know. I have seen on YouTube a couple of others that have reported a similar thing. And even on the first video that I did, I had a couple of comments that said, yeah, it sounds a little weird. Then I even had one or two comments that said, you know what, it sounds good to me. It sounds okay. So I thought, you know what, I don't need to request another album if this is the way it sounds. And if they believe that this is just inherent to the way the sound of the album is, I don't really need to have another copy of it if that's the way it's going to be. And so I've been listening to this album. I'll bet you I have listened to this album and the 1976 original pressing at least 20 times, if not 25 times each. And as well as this one to a degree, not nearly as much, and I'll tell you that here in just a second, and tell you why about in here in just a second. But I just, anyway, I, I got the information back that I was, that they were willing to give me, and I respect it. I no ill fate towards Mobile Fidelity or anything like that. I understand it, but I got to be honest with you. When I listen to these albums, on side one of the Mobile Fidelity, I do believe it sounds slightly different than the rest of the album. From my perspective, on my system and through my ears, I just feel that the top end and bottom end have been clipped off. When comparing the Mobile Fidelity version of Dreamboat Annie to the 1976 original mushroom pressing, the top end is more extended. The bottom end is a titch more extended. The vinyl on the Mobile Fidelity is much quieter, way more quieter than either of these copies. But Magic Man and Crazy on You just sound right on the original pressing compared to the Mobile Fidelity, in my opinion. I can't tell you now. Things shift a little bit when I go from side two, and in particular, when I go from side 3 and 4 on the second album. I think the tracks there sound absolutely phenomenal, and I do believe that they sound better on the Mobile Fidelity than they do on either the Nautilus or the original pressing. But I tell you what, when you listen to these two iconic songs, Magic Man and Crazy on You, two of the biggest, probably Heart's really and truthfully biggest, most recognizable, iconic tracks that they ever did, is Magic Man and Crazy on You. And it just sounds right on the original pressing. And so, and I'm not going to go through every track and every song, but just to say, I'm disappointed in the sound quality on side one of the Mobile Fidelity Dreamboat Annie version of the album. When I compare that to the 1976 and even to the Nautilus Super Disc, the 1976 original pressing just sounds better. The Nautilus sounds good. It's a good sounding album. It's probably got a little bit more extended top end than does the original pressing, and maybe even a titch more extended on the bottom end. But the top end on the Nautilus, to me, through my ears and through my system, is just a titch on the bright side. But I tell you what, the 1976 mushroom pressing sounds just right. It sounds exactly the way the album, in my opinion, and from my perspective, should sound. It sounds phenomenal. Now, with the caveat, it gets better on side 2 and much better on album 2, sides 3 and 4 on the Mobile Fidelity. So I really don't know what more to say about this other than this. My conclusion and my ranking of these albums would be as follows. I would rank these albums as first, number one, the one that I will choose to listen to because I love this music, will be the 1976 original pressing. Followed closely at number 2, really mostly for album 2, sides 3 and 4, the Mobile Fidelity version of Dreamboat Annie. And then, of course, third, the Nautilus. I just think the top end on the Nautilus is just a titch overdone, a little bit overbright. Not that it's terrible, not that it's horrible, but it's just, I prefer the original pressing better. So at the end of the day, and my conclusions on this as I review this album with you, Mobile Fidelity version of Heart Dreamboat Annie, even though side 3 and 4 is fantastic and side 2 is better, it's a no-go for me because the classic songs of Magic Man and Crazy on You, in my opinion, are noticeably better on the original 1976 pressing. So that's where I come down at. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with the Mobile Fidelity, if I'm going to keep it. This fall, I'm going to be probably selling a bunch of albums. I've got a lot of copies of some albums, and I don't need a lot of copies of a lot of albums. So I'm going to be selling some of those off, and I think this album might be within that stack. Little, just not what I was hoping for from Mobile Fidelity on this album, even though sides 3 and 4 do sound outstanding. So really, for me, at the final analysis and final thought on this album, if I'm going to reach for an album to play of these 3 copies, it's going to be the 1976 original pressing. That's the one that I'm going to reach for. Now, Mobile Fidelity has recently mentioned that they are going to be releasing some great albums. They are going to be releasing Doobie Brothers minute by minute. There's a pre-order on their site for this album now. I'm excited for that. I am going to be buying that. I've got a couple of pressings of that, including the Speaker's Corner and an original pressing that I'm going to want to. I'm hoping that Mobile Fidelity does a great job here. And this is really the thing that really is kind of frustrating a little bit for me, is because I believe Mobile Fidelity, as of recent, have done a fantastic job. I go back to the Van Halen box sets, the one steps. They've been utterly fantastic. The Eagles one steps, the Santana, Abraxas, not to mention 3 or 4 other Santana albums that they have come out with, have all been absolutely fantastic. I have been so very impressed with the work that Mobile Fidelity has been doing as of late. I just couldn't get there with this one. It just, side 1 to me, it just doesn't sound right. It just doesn't sound like I think it should sound. My original pressing is better. But Mobile Fidelity is also coming out. They just announced a pre-order for Emerson, Lake and Palmer, self-titled Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Another fantastic album. I'm going to jump on it because I'm going to be hoping that sounds fantastic. That's a great album. I hope they do the entire catalog of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I would love it. I know they've done that in the past. I know they did pictures of it at an exhibition, which I do have. They did Trilogy. I do have that. I believe they did Tarkus, and I have that one as well. And so I would love to see them come back and do that entire catalog. That'd be great of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I wouldn't complain one bit. I hope that they do. Anyway, this is my follow-up video at Heart Dreamboat Annie on the Mobile Fidelity label. It's a no-go for me. I'm going to choose my original pressing. Anyway, thank you all so much for being with me. Please leave comments in the comment section below. I want to know what you think. Have you purchased this? I want to know your thoughts. Am I up in the night? Am I out in left field? Is my hearing going bad? Let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear what you think. And tell me if I'm right. Tell me if I'm wrong. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this, I think, iconic album that I truly, truly love. Thank you all so much for being with me here today. Have a great day.